Welcome back, everybody. We are currently working on tearing down the rest of this motor. I know in the last video we kind of pulled the heads off and seen what was underneath, and this cylinder looked great. The left cylinder was about worst case scenario. To continue the tear down, I'm going to go ahead and pull the flywheel, then we'll spin it around and I will get the all the gear train apart. Hopefully we can get the valves and that out of this, and then we can work on getting the good cylinder out. We may have to soak that other cylinder. So let's go ahead and get after it. With this nut here, we'll try it without heat. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to use some heat on it. Every one I've ever taken off, they just don't want to come without any sort of assistance. Someone beat me to the fold over lock. It's already folded flat. So we'll get the socket out, grab a ratchet, see if it wants to move. No way. It's loose. The pony motor broke loose. Surprisingly. That's incredible. I would never have guessed that. That kind of just made my night, that actually moves. I'm going to get all this cleaned out just so that when we do go ahead and actually pull this apart, I should be able to save all that stuff, especially now that I'm able to move it. Well, with all the fun and excitement over, I was able to get it to turn 360 degrees. We're going to keep going with the teardown. Remember, this block is cracked. I'm not saying it couldn't be fixed, but I have a line on a period correct block. I also have a period correct block that is just a few years newer. Still same design. Still early part number. But we still need to get all the guts out of this one, assess condition, see what we have, what we're working with, find out what I need for parts, if I need new rings, bearings, pistons, etc. If we need to have a crank cut. So we will get this nut off. I'll bring you back. A little bit of heat goes a long way with those. So next up we have the fold over lock, which is a little warm yet. Get that out of there. And now we should be able to bring the puller in, hopefully grab onto this one. Now, before everyone gets after me for pulling on this lip, I'm just gonna put just a little bit of pressure on there. And then we're gonna come in here and heat this and see if we can get it to pop, because I would like to save that flywheel. I'd like to reuse that one. Now, before anyone asks why I don't grab farther back on the flywheel, this is kind of one of those use what you have type of things. This is the puller I have, and unfortunately it does not fit farther back. So I think if we just give it just a little bit of warming, I mean, we don't need it red hot by any means, but just to help it off of there. It should pop right off. So after preheating that for a little bit and just slowly working tension on it, it just popped off of there. I didn't break anything, which is good. I would like to get the next puller for these, but I will tell you, these Lock pullers are nice, but they are expensive. They work well, but just the jaw design here, you need the bigger size in order for that curvature to reach around and grab up underneath the back of that, which is where you should be pulling. Like I said, if you take your time, really you can You can do it pulling off this flange. It's obviously not recommended. And as you can see, we're right at the limit of this one, but this is the biggest one that I have. So we'll take the nut, fold over lock, put them with that, and we'll set this aside to cool down. Be sure and grab this key that decided to come jumping out of there. So with the engine spun around, we can go ahead and pull this drain tube off and then get this cover out of the way. That'll let us tear that gear train down. That way we can get it off these blocks of wood. See, it's about as dry as it gets. Definitely no oil in there. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get this cover to move. Bushing looks pretty good inside. There's a cam thrust button there. Pull idler gear next. Oh, that's beautiful. That is a nice piece coming out of the nasty bell housing. I don't know if you guys remember back to that, but it's full of mice. I'm surprised they never got up into here, or that this never saw any damage. So next up, we need to get these fold over locks out of there, get those two bolts out, and pull that crank gear. Another fold over lock to add to Squatch 253's pile that we can mail to him. So next up, we need to get the puller in. If you remember from the last video, we found out you don't try this with cheap hardware. I made sure to buy extra grade 8 bolts just in case as well, because all Caterpillar gives you is a 1/4 20 bolt to grab that with. So in the last video we made, I had a comment in the comment section from Old American Iron. That's Jeffrey. He commented that these valves must have been closed really tight to keep the cylinder this nice. And they were. They did a very good job. But they just let just a little bit of moisture barely by. I mean, absolutely nothing to be concerned about. But as you can see, if I turn the cam here, both of those valves still work. The other side is unfortunately stuck. Those are stuck open. So we're going to see if we can get these out as an assembly here, and then we'll try and pull the cam. So I wanted to show you guys how to get these clips out here. And on stuck motors, this is a lot of fun because a lot of these components don't want to move. But if you look there, when I have this pick down in there, I can push that guide back and I can grab that. I can pull that out, slowly release. Now, as you can see, this is full of garbage. I'll have to clean that out. But I just wanted to show you guys how I remove those clips. And with that out, you should be able to just take this out as a complete assembly. And there's that. And actually the face of those valves, they don't look too bad at all. And then the lifter can come next. Goes through the same hole. Not too bad, no scoring or anything. We'll keep those as matched pairs. Move on to this next one after I clean this hole out. Okay guys, I was able to get this other valve out. I did have to put a little bit of heat to it as the guide was stuck in order to get that clip out. But now that whole assembly is out. And it's just hot enough to where I don't want to grab it. So we'll take that out of there. Next we'll bring that lifter through, pull that out, keep that with that valve assembly. So with those out of the way, and with these two stuck, this was the bad cylinder, they are stuck back far enough where I can walk the cam out here. So go ahead and get that out of the way. To continue this tear down, we need to pull the cotter pins out of here, pull the nuts off, and then separate the rod, or the cap from the rod. Now, being that there is a very limited amount of space to work, I'm going to pull the cover on the other side, but I don't know how much I'll actually be able to video of this. My hands are going to be in the way a lot. I'll have to see, kind of going back through when I edit, what was good and what wasn't. Bearing doesn't look horrible. It may clean up. Okay guys, number one, both nuts are off, and this was the bad cylinder. Let's see if we can get that rod cap to separate off of there. So this is that bad cylinder. We did get a little scoring coming out. I probably should have taken some sort of sandpaper in there and clean that up, but I really can't feel it. It's just cosmetic. So these would run again, no problem. Rings are all loose, even the middle one. I think this would clean up and run just fine. There is a part number there. Now these are the later design. They have the circlips and not the pound-in aluminum retainer. So let's go ahead and get the other side out. Real quick, got the bearings out of rod number one here. This was the cap end and this was the rod end. I would definitely run those again as long as they measure within spec. There is no lip, a little discoloration, but nothing I would be concerned about. Alright, with the second piston started on its way out, should be able to just grab a hold of this one and wiggle it on out of there. There we go. That leads us down to the crank. Now the bearings did stay on the crank here, so I'm just going to be careful pulling it out. Make sure we don't drop those. No, they didn't. They already fell in the block. So we'll look at the crank here quick, and then I'll grab those. Now this is an early style crank here. You look, there's a spiral cut into it. That's for bringing oil back in. They don't run a seal. Not sure if you guys can hear that, but the neighbors have their dirt bikes out. Dirt bikes and four-wheelers. Not sure what this will pick up, but I can hear them plain as day. I think that crank would probably polish the way it is. Set that off to the side. Grab these bearings out of here. We'll clean those quick. And just like the other side. I would reuse them. Like I said, as long as they're within spec, I have no issues reusing those at all. There's no groove. I know you can see it, but there's nothing catching there. So as far as the valves go on this, I'm going to let them soak because those two guides are stuck, as well as the lifters. And being that this block really isn't going to be the block I'm going to use. I mean, it could be. I shouldn't count that out. But as I said earlier, I have other options. But now that we have it completely torn down, or almost completely torn down, I'm going to flip it over and we're really going to get a good look at that crack and how that heaved out of there. So here you can see that crack just kind of picks up about right in there, and this is all heaved out all the way up to about here. So I don't know how they would go about fixing that. I would almost think you'd have to cut some of this out completely and put a patch in there. I guess I'm not 100% up to date on cast iron repair. For the most part, it's becoming a lost art. Now, I did solve one of the big mysteries of this little pony motor. I found the serial number. It's underneath the block. So this is a 2A3421, which is the correct block for this crawler. As you can see, block has been welded over here. And the reason we never saw this is I've never had this block on its side or upside down. I had it in the air, but I never really looked underneath it. When we took it off the tractor, I just quick got it out of the way and kept the disassembly process of the tractor going. So that is interesting to know that they did put a serial number on it. So that kind of answers a lot of questions. I know a lot of people thought maybe this was like a factory replacement type block, but Cat was really good about their numbering system, and I just wasn't quite on board with that. But now we know the answer. So I think that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I want to thank everyone who hits the like button, who's subscribing for more videos. We still have a long way to go on this project. We're basically pretty much torn down. It's time to start cleaning stuff, blasting, getting stuff painted, and then we'll slowly start reassembling piece by piece. So stick around, there's more to come. We'll see you on the next one. Let's go for a walk.